Good evening, folks. Welcome here. Don't know who's here unless you leave a text in the chat. Welcome, Susan. Been a minute. Been kind of busy lately. Had a little rough go of it last week, so I had some catching up to do, obviously. But I'm getting there. Okay. I'm looking at my solar system. It looks like I'm losing out on some power somewhere, I think. Maybe I just had a bad connection on these batteries and wasn't getting a good charge on the small battery bank. I don't know. I checked all the connections and snugged them this evening, so I'll see tomorrow. If it's still not up above 14 volts tomorrow, I'm gonna have to think about maybe getting another voltage regulator for that side. It's no biggie. It's like 20 bucks wholesale or retail. I hear a boat motor. I hear some kids on a little boat. Not smoky, but super muggy. It's in the high 90s today and high humidity. I have managed to organize a little shop space up front of this guy's house and installed a little window shaker in there. So, I spent the majority of the day up front in that area. Just like, look, man, it was too late to get anything done in the hot sun, So, just stay in that area and spend as much time as I could organizing that area, and it needed it anyway. It's not really the biggest priority, but it did need to be done. I think my big priority now is I need to get up sooner. Okay, that sounds like a four-wheeler going through the woods. That would have to be on the other side of the river. That must be further away than it sounds. I could have sworn I heard a boat coming through earlier. No matter. I'll be cooking bacon after it cools off a little more. And you know how that does. Like, I don't feed the critters out here, but sometimes the predators smell it. I think we had some kind of predator come into the park. When I came into the park early this morning, the recycling bin was dumped over and just mauled and trash everywhere. And it didn't look like something raccoons could do. Like, it had to be something heavier. It might have been a bear. Or it could have just been teenagers tearing shit up, I suppose, or who knows, some nut job. Bored teenagers, or some nut job that freaking doesn't know better, who knows. But it sure looked more like an animal shredded everything inside, you know. Like, people don't tend to shred through the trash. They just might kick the can over or light it on fire or something. But yeah, I don't know. I'd say hi, but I don't even know how to pronounce that. Gigi Bieniek, and the next one's even more difficult. Eleuterio. But hello. Yo, I don't have to know how to pronounce your name to respect you. So, on another note, I picked up another can of stove fuel. Got a new 12 by 9 tarp, so I can get rid of another one of these ratty tarps. And, wow, this little, I painted the roof above me white. Sealed it. Well, I guess I'm not going to notice any difference till I get the tarp off of it. I'm still dealing with the heat that transfers through the tarp, so I don't know. This silver tarp don't reflect much heat after it starts degrading from the sun. And that's kind of where it's at. I need to get rid of it before it starts flaking into the water too. So, there's that. I'm going to take these tarps down. But, yeah, just always something. I'm noticing a little drop in the power over on the small battery side. So yeah, I don't know. That voltage controller has been through hell. It's been submerged in salt water and rained on, and it's been freaking overloaded, and it's just, I can't believe it's been working all this time. Like, the damn digital screen is on the fritz. It's been on the fritz for over a year. But yeah, I can't complain. I cannot complain. For 20 bucks bought right off the shelf, it has done an excellent job of regulating some voltage for me off of a small panel. I've never maxed it out, so I couldn't say how it does as far as performing the way they claim it does when they sell it to you. I've never pulled the max power off of it. And I've never maxed out the amount of solar it can handle. I've always had it about a quarter to a third of what it's rated for. So it's not really been given any kind of stress test, but it has been given the test of time durability and freaking just, it's actually been installed on 3 different boats and sailed around Florida for about a decade or so, maybe more. So I'd say it's paid for itself long ago. Oh, it was handling 400 watts on the 40-foot boat up until about 2 years after the lockdowns is when I had that one. running. Okay, one, two, three, yeah, four different boats. I got to correct myself again. Four different boats, and I'd say, man, a, a good 10 years. Has it been since I had that? Oh, I'm getting some action in the water. I'm not even cooking yet. I don't know what that was, but it made a good splash. Anyway, yeah, these cheap $15, $20 waypoint modulators, if you're just trying to set up a simple basic system on your RV or your boat or your van or whatever, yeah, maybe the tool shed out back, you just want to have some basic 12-volt lighting or something. You're not trying to power the universe or the whole house or a central AC system or a fridge or anything like that. You're just trying to like light up the area, maybe have a little desk fan and charge your phone type of system. Not a problem at all, man. You know, and if you really want to use some power, it's totally you can scale up your system with multiple modules. Like you just don't need to draw more power through the you don't draw your power through the voltage regulator like you do on house power, like a solar system you put on your house. You would run it from your batteries through an inverter, and then you wouldn't have a big massive inverter powering your whole house. You'd have individual units that just give you maybe 20% more power than whatever you're plugging into it. And so you have each you got these little inverters that are like $50 now, $100 or less. And you can get a couple hundred watts, 300, even 400 watt inverter for each. You just get a separate inverter for every unit, one for your laptop, one for your just whatever you want to plug in. If you want to power a drill or whatever, you got to look at how much that unit pulls of power in wattage, and then get an inverter that supplies that's made to supply a little bit more than that, so you're not stressing the unit. In other words, if you want to draw 80 watts off your system with an 80 watt unit, say you got a little soldering iron and you want to do some soldering, it pulls a 100 watts, so you get a 100 watt inverter. Your 100 watt inverter is going to be straining to the max. It really won't get the peak voltage it needs, and it may get overheated, but you get a 120 or 130 watt inverter for that 100 watt unit. Okay, so that leaves you with different inverters all over the house, all running through fused links to your battery. That's fine. Okay, say some inverter burns up on a crucial system in your shop, and then you unplug a non-crucial thing that has an equal or better inverter, and you plug in that crucial thing, and your system's back up and running while you go get a new part. And the great thing about it is, not if, but when one of the electronics units goes bad on your system, it's a cheap fix. It's maybe $100. It's not $10,000. So you're having redundancy in the system. I mean, it's not really ideal for a house, but it's for a boat, it's perfect. For any kind of travel system, it's a great idea to have redundancy in all your systems, and to really sometimes go with that smaller, cheaper unit than the freaking single expensive does it all unit that costs you a bundle, and everything shuts down all at once when something fails. I've been looking at getting some cordless power tools that run on 12 volts. They make drills and even a little skill saw that's 12 volt. It's hard to find. They're mostly 18, 24, 32 volts, you know, whatever, which is good. Those have more power. It's really hard to get good power out of a 12 volt unit. But if I can get a 12 volt setup, then I can take, say I find one that's got dead batteries in it, no problem. Take the battery pack apart, pull the dang batteries out of it so they're not drawing on the system, and wire a direct wire straight to my 12 volt system with a fuse in it. Fusible link. And I could have a couple little black and red alligator clamps that I clamp to the battery to run a drill, to put some screws in or make a cut some lumber. Man, you know how much quicker all this work would get done. Oh, the only thing would be if I could find some type of grinder wheel. Man, I'd be building my dry dock and doing some home improvements. Speaking of which, I have the two float tanks for a dry dock in my water catchment system. See, I want to have a setup where I can take my barrels from the water catchment and easily attach them to a couple beams, sink them under the boat, and pump them out, float my boat out of the water so I can do a repair, emergency repair if need be. Say I'm stranded out in the middle of nowhere and I got a little patch kit and I get the boat a hole in it. You know, it's no big deal. As long as I got enough water catchment and some rain coming to replenish my water, or I got enough drinking water, you know, those tanks will just be shower and dishwater and for washing clothes and stuff, you know. It's not drinking water. I buy that, or I process water for that. So idea is it's not crucial water, but I take those water tanks, empty them out, make my dry dock. Just have to have the right pump system. So I submerge the two tanks with beams between them underneath the boat, and then the output port of a water pump transfer the water out of those tanks. The tanks float back up to the surface, picking up half of the boat out of the water. I can wrap that half in plastic, tape it all up good, and do the repair I need. Then sink the tanks, drop the dock under the water, put the boat back on the float, and remove the beams and tanks and put them back on the deck, flush them out, rinse them out, and connect them back to my plumbing and have my rain catchment system again. See, the whole idea is be self-sufficient. This boat, I want this boat to be able to cruise the Great Loop and be completely self-sufficient, where no matter what happens, I got everything I need to deal with it. You know, before I set out on a trip, when I leave one town or go to another or cross an expanse where there's no supplies, I want to have everything I could possibly need to do anything needed to make sure that boat gets back safe with everybody in it. You know, that's the goal. And I'm always pushing. The whole thing is, well, you know, how much can this boat handle? What kind of weather and waterways can it handle? And what kind of distances can it carry supplies for? How many people can it carry? How much weight? And I'm always looking to improve all those things and increase them. You know, how fast does it go in a given day? How far can you travel in so many hours? All that, you know, matters as to how much food and water weight you got to carry to get there alive. You know, good rule of thumb is if you plan to be out for a day, make sure you have enough food and water for 2 or 3 days. If you plan to be out for 2 or 3 days, make sure you have enough food and water for a week or two. And if you plan to be out for a week or two, make sure you have enough food and water for at least a month or two. Because, and even when you set out and everything is stocked up and everything's going perfect, everything's running great, and all is according to plan, don't just go out and be like, okay, it's our first day out, let's have a feast. You know, like first couple days of the trip, you want to gauge how far did we go. Let's kind of just scrimp on all the supplies a little bit. You know, ask yourself, does it hurt to skip a meal that day? If you're not really rationing, you're just cutting back between towns on your consumption. And then you make up for it when you get in town. And that way, you go through the first third of the trip going, okay, cut back, and then by the time you get halfway through the trip, you're like, well, we've already got way more supplies now than we need, and we've made really excellent time. Weather's still doing good. You know, that's when you start eating a little better. You know, I'd say I probably got a lot more space in this boat than you have in the cab of your truck. Even with the back bed in the back, yeah, not a lot. I can't say a lot, but you got to consider I got the canoe alongside and behind too, and that's several 100 pounds in there. But I mean, just think about, imagine you're trying to take that truck across country and renovate the interior while you're doing it, having all the tools you need to do such a renovation and the materials stuffed back there in there, and you still got to find a place to sleep and cook. Because I don't know if you cook in your cab, but I cook in here. Like, I have a full kitchen in this space. So yeah, it gets to be a mess real quick, really quick. But I get a handle on it before I go on any trips, because I know when I go out in the main waterways, the boat's going to get tossed and turned, and everything that's not tied down will fall over. If it's not inside, it'll be on the floor. That happens to everybody in their sailboats too, man. You go out thinking you got everything secured, and it's like, no matter, it seems like most boaters, most sailors, not necessarily boaters, but sailors especially, because their boat will be generally leaned over at like 35, 40 degrees for a good portion of the trip, you know, and that's just like cruising along. So you're getting a little bit of rough out there, and you can pretty much, plus you don't really go sailing unless there's a decent stiff wind, so it's already going to be pretty choppy no matter what when you go out in the open sailing. You're going to get some chop, so you're going to get bounced around, and anything that's not strapped to the walls is, you look down in the floor and everything's in the middle of the floor. But that's how you get it organized, is by taking it out sailing and see what flies to the middle of the floor, and figure out that how you got to secure it this one better. This didn't work. Okay, I tried that with that thing, it didn't work. Also figuring out how to keep yourself in the bunk, that can be a neat trick. When you're laying lengthwise with the boat and the boat's rocking side to side, man, you can end up on the floor yourself trying to get some winks. Yeah, I don't deal so much with that whole tilting at 30, 40 degrees plus. This is a trimaran, I don't really tilt. But the whole boat does get jounced around because it's just a small boat. And there's big people making big waves in the big boats out there. Not today, Captain. Nah. I'm going to be making bacon fish here in a minute. I caught off the shelf at Wally World. I don't think, man, I got a fishing license this year and I've only done one catch and cook. Water looks nice back here, but coming back here this afternoon, I went through some real nasty muck. And I don't want to fish in that. I don't want to fish until that water clears out. It sometimes takes a day or two. Sometimes it didn't look like a lot. It just, yeah. I'm in an estuary, you know. This is like the filter of the ecosystem in the waterways down here. It's the beginning of the water filters for this whole state. Is I'm also near a pretty big couple of industrial cities, so there's a lot of muck that ends up in the waterways here. I kind of watch like what fish are running when, and you know, some of these fish, there's certain creatures running that give me indications that the water's clean. Oh yeah, the catfish are, well, I try not to feed them, but there's plenty of muck here for them to eat. They don't need me feeding them. There's really a lot of, you would be surprised at how much natural food supply there is for the creatures out here. Like, there's not a lot of, you know, the competition is not as fierce as a lot of places. Okay, I think it's about cool enough to light the stove. Get some bacon frying. Oh man. I'm sore and tired, folks. It's not going to be anything exciting tonight unless... Yeah. I'm not trying to get famous on the stream. I'm just kind of video journaling my journey. So it's all good. I appreciate it. I appreciate the stopping in to check me out. I just got some regulars that come in and like to chat, and I've been offline for a few days, and I just never know. One of these, when I'm cooking dinner, a lot of times the gators smell it and they come to smell what's going on, and I don't feed them, but I might get them on camera. You know, my journey's been good since I started looking reality in the face and stopped depending on other people who prove to me that they can't be depended on. and you know, the less my plans depend on someone else's freaking cooperation, the more successful I tend to be at whatever the hell I'm doing. Even though I get more done faster with someone's cooperation, it's a rare thing that people actually cooperate or have the same vision. You know, a lot of times I'll talk about my vision and somebody else say, oh, I want to get into that, and then they don't really understand the vision fully, because I don't really talk about the whole vision. But I do have a vision. I do have a few missions I'm looking to accomplish before I die. The main one being enjoying some of this time while I still got some. You know, joy is not a guarantee in life. They tell us we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if you expect happiness to be like the day-to-day normal all the time, you're probably not being realistic. But if you can find some joy, at least most of the time, you're doing pretty good, maybe better than most. Tell you what, if I can find joy, anyone can. Well, nah, I can't say I've been through, and I've been lucky, man. There's people out there that have been put through a lot worse than me. I've been put through the freaking ringer, man. But I'm still been luckier than a lot of people. Narrowly avoided way worse. On a few occasions, I've narrowly avoided way worse than what I've been dealt in life, and on a few occasions, I've lucked out way better than I could have expected. Tell you what, I wouldn't be able to do any of this if I didn't have the skills. And I wouldn't have any of these skills if I hadn't had the people that took me under their wing along the way and taught me different techniques and trades. And I wouldn't have learned those things if I hadn't had some really good teachers that taught me some key things about how to teach myself. Like, you know, I had a few teachers that at a young age that weren't just trying to like stuff information into my head. They were trying to teach me how to learn. Not teaching me how to think, but how to gain the knowledge of any subject I wanted to learn. I don't know, I have to say I'm really lucky coming from a place of not having any money to like have had the teaching I've had, to gain the knowledge I've had, to gain the skills I've got, to do the things I do with so little, do so much with so little. Like I couldn't do it without that, without those teachers. You know, a couple people, I wouldn't walk right now if it weren't for a couple people. Like one person, I never knew his name, but you would not believe this, but I had a spinal injury, was stuck in the middle of the woods, probably 2 miles away from the nearest service road, with a slipped disc, and couldn't stand, couldn't walk, couldn't leave my gear, couldn't get to town without the gear. I was done for. I was gonna need an emergency evac, and some dude out of the blue showed up, had certifications, and he had what do you call it, acupuncture kit and chiropractic. You know, this guy was a professional acupuncturist and chiropractor. Oh, I got a Hey, you're live on YouTube. I thought I heard an air-cooled engine. Sounds like a janky-ass engine they put together. It's kind of what I was talking about, having twin air-cooled engines on this, on the outriggers. Yeah. That's basically a little lawnmower engine on top of a lower unit. It doesn't need water to cool the engine. It just cools by the air being blown over the fins, the cooling fins and the oil in it. Welcome back, Monty and Dice. Well, I don't think I'm going to get any gators passing through for a minute. Not after that, because they just scared off any. But we are making bacon and watching the sunset. You know what just occurred to me? That boat came through, had a motor and no numbers on it. It's not registered. I'm gonna have to check through my pictures. I got a picture of a canoe like that, of a canoe like that was stolen around here like 6 months ago. That one was blue. I think the one that was stolen, I want to say it was green, but I don't remember. I got a picture of it. I got the owner's number. But yeah, it's probably just somebody that bought it on Craigslist and doesn't understand that you have to have a registration to motorize them. All right, Dice. Made your own tacos. Nice. Beef's not that difficult, especially ground beef. It's just, cook it till it's brown. And you're pretty good if you cook it till it's brown. The tricky thing, let me tell you, believe it or not, the hardest thing to master is an egg over medium. If you can do that, you can cook just about any meat and do it right. You might mess up a few learning, but like the egg over medium is so tricky because you just have to be right on top of things. You have to flip it at exactly the right time. You have to have it at just the right temperature. If it's not hot enough, it sticks to the pan or the skillet, whatever you're using, if it's... And the trick is to cook all the egg white without cooking the yolk, because that's where all the nutrients are that you need. Like, you're eating a bunch of cholesterol, and if you cook the yolk, you're not even getting all the good nutrients out of the whole thing. But to me, I get grossed out if there's any of the egg white that's not cooked. To me, it's like eating snot, I think I gotta make sure all the snot's cooked. Sure, I do eggs here. This pan, I don't have a non-stick pan, and I don't use cast iron because they're too heavy for the boat. So I really can't use my preferred cooking utensils. I'm using stainless, and it's really just inferior cooking surface. So my eggs usually end up being boiled or scrambled. You know, it's just really difficult to get an over medium on a stainless steel with an alcohol flame, especially. It's just coconut oil helps because it has a real high flash point. Oh, bacon's easy. You kidding? You just put that on medium and let it sizzle till it's brown on all. You flip it a couple times and make sure. Man, the easy part of bacon is by the time it's starting to, you throw it in there, it makes its own grease. Okay? So then you kind of tip the pan up so all the grease runs to the quarter of it. And you stuff all the bacon into the grease pile and press it down with the spatula and just hold that one corner of the pan on the heat. And you'll see that once you get all the bacon submerged in its grease, it's going to brown really quick on all of it. For a job, wait, I thought you were, oh, okay, you're in your 20s. I was thinking you were like there's a 10-year-old that comes in here. I'm sorry. Okay. Still, it's not unheard of for someone. Aren't you're like 28. Okay. I was thinking you were younger because of not cooking. Yeah, by the time you're in your 20s, you should know how to cook for yourself because, man, yeah, that's one thing. They teach us boys that we're going to get happily married in our 20s and our wife's going to do all the cooking. And that is a myth. That is, I don't want to say myth because it does happen. Now you don't have to have a I'm not discrediting your mental disability. I'm just saying don't feel bad. You're not. There are some perfectly mentally capable people out there at your age that don't know how to cook a steak or wouldn't have the faintest clue how to clean a fish or God forbid you give them an egg to fry. And man, most people your age group these days would not know how to do anything that I did when I was 10. None of it. Like when I was 10, my day started out. Look, let me tell you an average day when I was living with grandma on the farm, okay? I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay? Because if I don't get up by 4, nothing gets done early enough for me to have time to play with the horse after work. So I want as much time after the work day as I can get. So I wake up as early as I can because I'm the one that starts the whole house working. I'm the youngest and I got the easiest jobs, but no one else starts the day until I do. Because my job, first thing I would do is wake up in the morning. It's a little cold. Our house was heated. We lived up in Oregon, so the house was, it's usually cold, and it was heated by a wood stove in the middle of the house. I had to learn how to stoke a fire, how to build a fire. A lot of mornings, nobody else is up. It's cold. I want a fire going, so I got to go outside and chop some kindling to make a fire. So I had to know how to handle an axe at a young age and a hatchet without cutting my fingers and legs off. I had to know how to light a fire without smoking a house out. I had to, know how to work the flue on the stove. These are things most 10-year-olds aren't even trusted to do. Okay, but I'm still not getting started. I'm just this is just my getting out of bed and warming the house up process, okay? Next thing I'm going to do is put on a pot of coffee, even though I didn't drink coffee. Because I knew the smell of roasting coffee would make sure Grandma woke up. Okay? And she'd start cooking breakfast. She didn't care what time it was. If you had a pot of coffee on and she would smell it and wake up, I didn't care if it was 1 o'clock in the morning. She would get up and start making breakfast at 1 o'clock in the morning on autopilot without looking at the clock. If she smelled coffee, she was on autopilot. And so, I'm up there 4:15, 4:30. I go out and collect the eggs, feed the chickens and collect the eggs. Okay. Bring those in for breakfast. And then I got to go out and feed the cows, feed the calves, feed the bulls, feed the horses, feed the dogs, feed the cats, feed the pigs. And then come back in and have breakfast. Okay, I'm still not doing my job for the day. I've just done the warm up for the day. Man, let me tell you, we had an early, long day out there, but it was rewarding too, because you got to see all the work you did produced food you could eat. And like at the end of the year at the harvest, you got to see all this. You didn't see a pile of money, but you saw, man, that harvest was a pile of money, because whatever you made off of the yearly harvest had to feed you and the family the entire next year. And you had to still put away enough every year to where maybe every 5 to 7 years you have a failure in all your crops because of drought or whatever. So you really had to be self-sufficient and know how to make things work no matter what. Hello, Christine. Welcome back. Kathleen. Yeah, it was a little bit like Little House on the Prairie. In fact, remember how they had a well and then one day they got that little hand pump installed and they were all excited about that? Well, I know that feeling. Like literally throwing a wooden bucket down a well and then cranking it back up on a spool with a rope by hand to get the water to do dishes and breakfast and washing up and everything. Like, yeah, I did that. And then we got the little hand pump indoors. We had a little hand pump in the sink, in the kitchen, and a wood stove. We didn't plow the fields with horse-drawn plow. We had a horse-drawn plow, but we didn't actually use it. Like, it was just kind of there. And we had horses, but they weren't like plow horses. They were just, to ride. And maybe to round up some cattle. But, nah. And we plowed the field with a Ferguson tractor. Original Ferguson. Before it was Macy Ferguson, and long before it was Ford Ferguson, it was just Ferguson. And let me tell you, the old two big wheels in the back, PTO in the back, and 2 little wheels in the front, just the old classic, like the shit you see in cartoons. Yeah, that's what we had pulling our plow and our we had a trailer to bale hay. Oh yeah, I went back to work this week. I actually got a week. I got a day in last week too. Ooh. Supposed to have some high temperatures this week and the rain slacking off, so it's not going to be so cool. It's going to be more muggy for the next few days. Oh. Oh, I'm in South Florida, near the west coast, on the inland waters. It's a little tributary off the side of the Caloosahatchee River. Like if you look at the Fort Myers, Cape Coral area there, that inlet. Now you'd have to look at my previous videos to see kind of like I show how this boat was built and at least the hull of it before I put the decking and the canopy on it and all that. I show where I launched it and launched this in Lake Monroe in Sanford. And it's been kind of like a 2-year journey cruising around the coastlines of Florida on a dime and whatever I can make on the way. Make scrounge, or I had a lot of people have donated. I've had people sponsor me for certain parts of the trip, and lately just been making my own funds. Ooh, it's been a good run. Having some issues with my power system now, and this is one of them times when I'm really glad that I have redundancy in the system, because at least have one fan working, phone charging, and lights. But it looks like I need to go through both. I need to get another voltage regulator, replace the old one, and then I need to fix the wire connections on the new one. Bayou, oh, it took me a while, Kathleen, to figure out what you were saying. Bayou-ish, buoy-ish, or I thought you were saying buoy. Bayou. B-A-Y-O-U, I believe, is bayou. It's a French word. Yeah, Dice, you can't let it get to you, man. Sometimes you hear me go off on trolls in here, and it's mostly out of boredom of not having anything to talk about. You know, but like, don't let it get you stressed, you know. It's crazy how most of the social media out there is really, it's really just there to make you mad or scared or something. Like, it's not there to inform you. It's there to convince you of something that you otherwise would not even concern yourself with. Like things that don't even affect your freaking daily life. And it's not even, a lot of it is not real. It's just there to get you pissed off or upset or hating someone or afraid of people. Because that's what gets reactions. That's what gets people to click on it, look at it, watch it, comment on it. And that's what raises people up the algorithm. And see, I refuse to be that guy, putting sensationalist labels on my videos so that everyone will click on them to see what the fuck, you know, like, and it's like, dude, I'm just here. This is Captain Kedger chilling, having a chat, you know. Like, if a big gator comes through, it wasn't planned. You know, I didn't come, you know, it just happens. If a good conversation comes out, it was not scripted. Yeah, people try to control me on here too. Like, look, there was like 10 people coming in trolling, threatening me, talking about sinking my boat and telling me they're sick of me being on their waters and I'm in the way of their speeding on their jet ski and shit. And I'm like, dude, what water am I in? I was like, you tell me what waterway I'm in and I'll move today. Like I'll go 20 miles away if you could tell me what waterway, what's the name of this creek. And dude, it took him like 45 minutes of talking shit before he finally answered the question. And he took a guess at it. And it was on the other side of the state. Like the name of the creek he mentioned is on the exact opposite side of the state. And I think he guessed that because he was looking on the map and listening to the places I happen to be talking about that I've sailed. And it's like I was fortunately telling a story of a place distant from here. It's like hundreds of miles away that I happened to have sailed in last year or a couple years ago. And like, so he was just taking a random guess. Speaking of random, here comes Random Rants. Right? Monty, I mean, near is relative. Near is relative. Susan, you don't you hang out at the dog park where I go? Like, I don't want to look. I'm not afraid of people knowing where I am. I really don't. I'm not worried about someone coming out here like somebody wants to kill me. I'm not hiding. There's nobody looking for me, and everything's legal on this boat. It's registered and up to date. I got all my legal requirements, so I have no reason to fear from anybody. It's just shit talk. Okay, like in fact, I know all the neighborhood watch people. I know half the city council in this neighborhood. I know the lady who's like friends with the mayor who talks to the sheriff, and like they're all buddies. They all know I'm here. If there was a complaint, I would have heard about it. If it was like anything serious. But I think they actually appreciate what I'm doing. And FWC, man, I haven't had any issue. I've been all over, all the way up the St. Johns River and all the way down the East Coast and across the lake and everything. And every FWC I've seen the entire way has been friendly with me. Every Marine Patrol has been friendly with me. I've had a couple words with a couple land cops that, I was tied up to the wrong dock too long. And it was just them just telling me I could, I was just pushing the rules. So I have no issues with the authorities or any of the neighborhood. Like, dude, when people talking that shit, first of all, if you're speeding through here in a jet ski, you're already breaking the law, because this is all no wake zone. And like, it was just shit talk. But I keep this motor running. I keep this boat in good order to where it wouldn't take me long to, straighten some things up, secure some things, dump some trash at the park on my way out, and move 20 miles, no problem. But what am I going to do? I move 20 miles, and what good is that going to do the world? Or me, or anyone? Like, I have work in this neighborhood that's doing a service. It's not just me making some money. I'm helping the guy out in a major way, and it's helping his whole neighborhood out and improving the property values around him. And so the whole neighborhood where he lives is, everyone's been coming around looking at my work and going, man, it looks good, man, it looks so much better over here, man. So Well, random, if you're in a tent in the park, you're breaking the law. That's the thing. I mean, the thing I'm getting at, no, it wouldn't be that difficult to make me move along. If the neighborhood really wanted me to, yeah, they could make me move along. I could come back in a month. You know, I'd have to move like by law. It's kind of like being camping in the national forest. You really should move every 2 weeks. You know, you can't just take up permanent residence. But the thing is, I'm not taking up permanent residence. I'm in here for a season. I'm getting out of this is a really good spot where I'm safe from the storm season. Like easy extraction if I need to bug out. If it's a really bad storm coming or something, I can easily extract this boat from this area. You know, it's just a good, safe place to be through the storm season. And I'm getting some really good nature footage. And, you know, the only thing is I would be a lot more open about my exact location if this wasn't such a residential neighborhood. Like, this is one of those cool spots where cool people know how to find it. And I don't need to ruin it for the whole neighborhood by telling everyone where it is, you know. Even when I leave here. There's a lot of places I might not show where I am until like a day after I leave there. You know, and it's, you know, but I'm not trying to, I'll still tell people about the location, you know, and what there is around, if there's businesses to promote that are, you know, something like that. But this is one of those areas where it's just like family park, walk the dog, you know, just the locals that have homes in this area. So there's really no business in the area to promote. So there's just no point in me telling the whole world where this spot is. Yeah. Well, the thing about this rig is, it's true, cops go for the easy target, but they don't go for me because there's nothing to squeeze out of me. You know, when it comes to the boat cops, they're really looking for the guy in the nice $4 million launch that's getting rude and breaking the rules on the water and thinks he doesn't care, and you know, they want to give him a stiff ticket and check all his shit. You know, they know I'm a lifer. I'm out here like minding my P's and Q's, you know, so they don't, you know, like they've already. The thing is, once one of them checks you, and especially when you're in a boat like this, it's so unique. They're all talking about you on the radio. They're all like from county to county. They all know I'm coming. Like, this is the only boat of its kind ever. It's the only boat in the entire state like it. So it's definitely got the attention of authorities and all kinds of people. You know, it's definitely not like a sneak around getaway vessel. But it is a good little bug out vessel if you need to bug out. Yeah, no, I'll tell you, you know, a lot of times the authorities will kind of raise an eyebrow at me when they first see me. And then instead of them, like, I don't wait for them to come up and start wondering and asking me questions. I just, like, I see them, I say hi, and I tell them what I'm about. And then I go, okay, I give them my YouTube channel. And they can look at what I do. And the videos, they can see kind of what I'm teaching people out here. And by that, they can tell, you know, what I'm about. And I think they kind of appreciate the little fire safety video. I don't just go, oh, let me stop on this island and show people how to build a fire. Let me stop on this island and show people how to build a fire safe pit in this environment that won't make root fires. And, you know, show them all the dangers of making a fire before making the fire. How do you make it safe? You know, Yeah. I don't look like a pirate, man. Maybe I look like a pirate. Nah, I don't. See, the thing about pirates that people don't understand, we all think of the word pirate and we picture this triangular hat and the freaking peg leg and the hook on the arm, and none of that's reality. In reality, the pirates of the old days dressed like everyone else dressed because they didn't want to stand out. Okay, now Blackbird, of course, there were some pirates that wanted to be famous because they wanted to be feared, and they would have that image where, you know, like he put the punks in his beard, so he'd be smoking, he'd have his beard would look like it's on fire, you know, and he'd walk around with smoke coming out of his beard and made him look scary. You know, people thought he was demon possessed and shit, you know. And I can understand that, but pirates didn't want to be hanged. So, you know, when they go into town, they want to just blend in. Like they just dress like your average sailor, you know. They didn't wear a big sign that said, I'm a pirate. And there are still pirates today. And they don't wear a fancy hat or a peg leg or a patch. They dress like, you know what a lot of pirates wear? Khaki pants and a flower print shirt, and put a camera around their neck and some sandals and a Panama Jack hat. And they look like any tourist. Not random. The girls love me because I got a brain and I got skills. Ozzy Osbourne. Maybe in his younger day. But Jack, you got to understand, by the time Pirates of the Caribbean was being filmed, Ozzy Osbourne was like had one foot in the grave. Like he couldn't even hold a conversation half the time. He was so fucked up. Like, no, Somalian pirates are dressed exactly like all the other Somalian poverty-stricken people. They don't put on a special pirate costume. They just walk across the desert and jump in the boat and take the AK-47 that they're handed. Yeah, they definitely look different than you and I because they're Somalian. Not because they're pirates, but because they're Somalian. they're the most poverty-stricken Somalians. You know, if I'm out there trying to run a ship around the shore and I see pirates coming at me from Somalia, I would have no qualms about sinking their boat and ventilating their ass. Okay, because it's you're defending yourself and your ship and everyone on it and the cargo. And there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, I don't hate those pirates because I understand those people are so desperate that they know they're going out to attack that ship and they're probably not going to make it. But they still do it because they're so desperate. Like these people, they walk across the desert in hopes of getting a job. It's a last hope job. It's the very worst of the worst job you could go for, but it's like a last ditch. If you do, it's like a lottery. If you don't make it, worst case scenario, you die and you're not starving anymore. And best case scenario, you get away with it and you get a big bunch of money that you can improve your life with and no longer have to starve. You know, and then there's all the in between where you might get like taken into custody, you know. But they have very little options in the world they live in the country they're from, and the the economy they're trying to survive in. I don't hate them. Don't mean I won't shoot them dead. But I don't hate them. Like, you know who I hate are the rich people that steal from poor people. I hate them because they don't have to, but they do it just because they can. Yeah, I mean, just because someone's desperate and you feel for them, don't mean you don't have to shoot them. But it does mean you shouldn't have to hate them. Hey, Maxwell. Yeah, I've been doing my thing, trying to catch up with everything lately. Hope you're doing better. Oh, well, I guess it's a little late for any good gator footage. Might just be winding us down right about now. Uh, I'm in a state of tiredness and possibly in a state of insanity. You know what they say, insanity is a state of mind, and I'm the governor. I'm in Florida, all joking aside, Jack Crow. You've been here a few times. I thought you already knew that. You're not new here, are you, Jack? Or I might be. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, even if you're at war, you're at war. Them soldiers are there to kill you, and you're there to kill them, but don't hate them, because chances are, whatever war you're in, the enemy is constricted into being a soldier. They didn't get a choice. Like a lot of countries, their armies are made up of, like, everyone in the country is required to serve a certain amount of time, and they're required to do what they're sent to do. They don't have a choice in the matter. And our soldiers are voluntarily enlisted, but at the same time, they go in believing one thing, and they may not necessarily know all the facts. They know what they've been told, and they're given their orders. They can't just choose not to obey orders after they've enlisted. So they don't necessarily agree with the government sending them to the war that they're in, but they don't necessarily have a choice. So, you go there, you do your job, you come back alive. That's your goal. But you don't necessarily have to hate your enemy that you're fighting with. Well, yeah. In this day and age, you don't know, they might be the good guys. The enemies might be the good guys. You don't know, because man, I'll tell you one thing I know for sure about our government is they lie. like, like the lines between what's right and wrong in war is pretty blurry until the winner decides to write the history book that says who was right and who was wrong. You know, like on a national level, you can't really think about so much right and wrong as much as what's best for your country. You know, and you like that's just reality. Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I saw they made a movie about that, but it's based on a true story where there was a ceasefire at Christmas and they just got out and exchanged greetings and hung out, played a game of soccer. Yeah, just like, hey, man, we don't. But then they still had to go back in the trenches and shoot each other the next day. I heard a story about how Iraqis in the Gulf War would be sent to the front lines and knowing they couldn't win, just roll right up to the Americans waving a white flag and surrender with all their gear and everything. Just like not even, not, just like they don't shoot. But I also seen footage of one of our Abrams tanks was surrounded by, I think, like 7 Saudi tanks that were all firing on it simultaneously, and they couldn't penetrate. They couldn't put a hole in it. They couldn't kill the crew. They had disabled even the tank wasn't disabled by them shooting it. It was disabled because one of the tracks came off. Like, this is like a maintenance issue. But it's sitting there just taking full on fire from all these tanks, and the dudes were still able to crawl out the escape hatch and get away. The crew. Oh, I heard of one was it an armored transport vehicle got stuck in the sand, and the Saudis showed up in tanks, towed them out. They were sitting ducks. They could have just taken them out, but instead of taking them out, they towed them out and then surrendered to them. I'm like, what? They got sent with tanks to go kill those invaders, and they got some invaders stuck with their pants down and turned around and helped them get their pants up and then surrendered to them. Like that. I'm like, okay, that sounds like some freaking real life war shit. Like, Yeah, sometimes I don't even think the Iraq invasion was really a war as much as it was us just flexing. Yeah, I just think they were Trump wanted to retire the A-10 Warthog. Said it was obsolete, and they just got better shit out there now. And oh man, I was like, I know there's some experienced warriors out there in the field that are slapping their faces, face palming, going, no, God, no, don't get rid of the Warthog, man. The thing is, if you're on the ground and you're surrounded by enemies and you have to call in air support for close air support, there's nothing in the world you want to hear coming over the horizon than an A-10 Warthog. The guy on the ground is like, when it's really bad and he hears the A-10 showing up and he thought he was about to die, that's when the tears start welling up in his eyes. The tears of relief, the thinking, I finally, for the first time today, I'm thinking I might live through this kind of feeling. You know? I mean, yeah, the new drones, the unmanned platforms, they're great and all, but dude, just nothing compares to the way the A-10 can get in and linger over the field and just suppress anything on the ground coming at you and not hit you. Like, they're just so accurate and able to so maneuverable. I mean, there's definitely something to be said for the unmanned, where you don't have to risk a pilot. But think about this, the Warthog is also made to where the cockpit is super durable for a plane that's so lightweight and maneuverable. They make the cockpit out of tungsten steel casing, and then everything else is light and can basically have holes all shot in it and still work. That thing, many times the 810 has come back from service and the pilot's still in good shape and the plane's still flying, but holes from one end to the other all through it. And like, it did its job. It's not that anything that it didn't do exactly what it was meant to do, was to go in there and save those guys on the ground from certain death. Drones don't have that, like, linger in this, like, the drone's gonna come in, take out its target, and then it's done. It's done doing its thing. The A-10 has come in and it's gonna just make everybody in the area lay down and duck for cover. Oh, it's gonna take out all kinds of armor. I think it's just it's devastating machine, and it can take a lot of punishment before it's taken out. I mean, I agree. I agree that the unmanned and the drones need to be developed more. Like, that needs to be more of some. See, no one really considered that a war option until this war with Russia and Ukraine. It wasn't really. It was more of like monitoring civilians and doing the odd tasks, but they never really considered it like, wow, we can just make tanks obsolete with these. These cheap drones, I mean, it's a whole new, it brings a whole new, the cheap drones brings a whole new element to warfare. No. But yeah, unmanned vehicles is the way to go when it comes to clearing minefields and shit. You don't want to have to risk a human life to go out there. Like, you know, the thing is, the warthog isn't for doing, a high priority target with minimal risk. The warthog is there to go save some people's lives when the risk is already there. Like the you've already missed your chance to mitigate the risks. Like, there's something that's gone wrong, and now you're doing damage control. That one guy in the warthog or two-man crew, they're going in and they're saving a whole platoon or a whole company or a whole, you know, they're saving some people that are facing almost certain death. And the idea of mitigating the risk we're already past that. Like, ship has already flown. It's left the dock, you know. And in those situations, you can't count on an unmanned drone to come in and analyze the situation quickly and respond to it in the way it needs to accomplish what needs to be done. That takes a human in the seat with the finger on the trigger to come in and just unload without getting clearance, without, analyzing telemetry. It just, like, the human brain just processes it, and it's okay. There's the friendlies, there's the bad guys, lay some fire in between. you know Random, if you want a really good idea of how devastating drones can be in a war, look at what China just did with drones in their big fireworks celebration. Go look at China's most recent fireworks shows and what they're doing, their fireworks shows they've done with drones. And then now imagine that kind of coordination with intent to kill. And you could easily see how, holy shit, yeah, dude, it kind of, it's pretty devastating shit. Like, and it'll overwhelm just about any defense system very quickly. And the worst thing is, it's cheap. I mean, we've had unmanned aircraft for a long time, but it was never cheap and small and, like, pocket drone carrying a freaking anti-tank round. Like, holy crap, dude. Dude, China's drone game right now is genuinely scary. Like, their jets ain't got shit on our jets. They got these brand new aircraft carriers that don't hold a candle to our old ones. Like, they're just now coming up to, like, even an inkling of how to run a big aircraft carrier, and it's still just their submarines are subpar to ours. But dude, they've got some tech. They've got better cloaking systems. Like, you think we got good stealth technology? You ain't seen shit. China has some badass stealth technology that puts ours to shame. Okay? Mark my words, China is not to be trifled with. Like, I'm telling you, people keep saying China is an easy, like, America could easily defeat China. No, you don't understand. China is way way ahead of the game on some shit you don't even. Oh. And here's the scariest thing about China when you compare China to the US. You got to understand this. If you don't understand anything else when you're comparing world powers, understand this. All of America's money for their funding for okay, research and development happens in private corporations, but when it gets sold to the military has to put in requisition forms to fund it. They have to have a project that's approved by Congress, and a bunch of people have to know about it. And then before long, it becomes public information. And like, the more funding it takes to fund a project, the harder it is to keep secret. Okay? Now, here's the key difference with U.S. and China. The China has no obligation to tell its citizens what it's doing with their money. At all. None whatsoever. There is no oversight. There's no public oversight whatsoever at all. Like, as little as we have as Americans, there is still some where, people catch wind of a secret project, and, and the government denies it, and we all know they're denying some shit they're doing, and, we don't know how powerful it is, but we got some idea of what they're working on, China, they take money from taxes from the citizens and just do whatever the fuck they want. And there is no questioning them. So you got to understand, countries like Russia, China, they can keep secrets a lot easier than our military can. So, like, yeah, I'm just saying, we got some pretty advanced shit these days that the world doesn't even know about. But don't think that China's out of the running just because our tanks and planes are better. They got a whole army of police already that are like straight up doing kung fu and shit. Like robots and doing law enforcement. Talk about an unmanned vehicle. What are you going to do when a 1,000,000-man army comes at you that's bulletproof, like Terminator style? Like, they're literally building the Terminator Cyberdyne systems. Yeah, I don't know that China, I wouldn't say China can and will sink our Navy. I like to think that the leaders of China are smart enough not to want to jump into a battle with the U.S. But if it came down to an all-out world war, you could believe that when it comes to, if we ever get weak enough to where they feel like, if we ever get weak enough to look like they could easily shut our system down, then they would. Absolutely. The thing is, they know that a protracted war with the states could cost them dearly. And every country in the world knows that America has no qualms about nuking someone. Like, we're the only country in the world that's ever nuked another country. Think about it. China doesn't want that up their butt. Neither does Russia. That's why we have all these proxy wars. Like, the war between China, Russia, and the States, it happens, but it's not. They're warring with our allies rather than us because they don't want a direct war with us. Maxwell, just because they could don't mean they should. And certainly nobody wants a nuclear strike. Nobody. Because like everybody knows that if we go into nuclear wars, any of the three superpowers go into nuclear war, everyone in the world loses. Nobody wins that. Even the wealthy elites, like even if they went down to ground into their bunkers and wiped out most of the population like they would love to do, they would love to do, they come back to a world where there's nothing left for them to rule over. And nobody wants that, where the whole entire world is irradiated and uninhabitable. Like, a nuclear strike on one area makes it uninhabitable for, a couple decades or whatever, but the world can come back from it, Japan's doing pretty good these days, But nobody really wants to live in the fallout of Chernobyl, even to this day, Yeah, well, that's the thing. Also, the bombs they dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were way smaller than the bombs we make today. The stuff we got now it don't just take out a city. The tungsten rods from space, I think they scrapped that project. I think it was a good concept, but that's one of those, the tungsten rods thing was oversold. It's one of those concepts that, yeah, kinetic energy weapon without the nukes, but it created a problem because, see, all of the superpowers in the world have agreed to not weaponize space. And for a plethora of different reasons. The minute somebody starts putting weapons in orbit, it gives the right to all the other countries to put weapons in orbit. And when they really look at the effectiveness of the rods of God, from God, what they're called rods from God, is what you're talking about. And in fact, you see a version of it in that video game. What is it? There's a freaking special ops game or something like that where you got, but I don't think that I suppose it's possible they could have some secret satellite up there with some rods from God, but I don't think so. I really don't. I think they scrapped the whole idea because of the amount of expense and maintenance and the risk involved in allowing countries to weaponize satellites and space and just. Yeah, it doesn't stop your body from absorbing nuclear fallout radiation. No, it don't. It it does help. It helps your body expel some of the absorbed radiation. It is a viable treatment and pre-treatment, to keep iodine in your system is a good idea, but it doesn't make you radiation proof. Really the only defense against fallout, well, it really is, you're looking at, is to not be in it. But fallout is really misunderstood. It's not really, um, it's radioactive dust in the air. Like, you're not being hit by the radiation from the bomb itself. Fallout is the radioactive dust particles, where that dust that got thrown in the air is now settling down on you. And that, man, if you cover your entire body, put some goggles on, and you cover your mouth, and then you go out in it for a little while, and you come back in, and immediately before you go into where you live, you take everything off that you were wearing, and you don't touch the outside surface. Everything goes straight into a trash bag that also gets stored outside your living space, and everything's sealed. Like, you got to have like an air chamber made where you, like, a almost like a decompression chamber. You come in and nothing from this area can get into your living space, and yeah, anything that you wore, just consider it contaminated. It all has to get tossed. And yeah, you can survive that without really getting. Now that's something that iodine in your system would help you to deal with, that kind of radiation. As long as you're not letting it on your skin, and you're not breathing that dust into your lungs, and people can, believe it or not, survive quite a bit of fallout. Don't recommend trying it, just saying. You don't really have to prep for that. You just get the iodized salt rather than the non. Maxwell. No, it don't. The spaceship, the shuttle, you talking about the shuttle or the space station? What spaceship are we talking about? Starship? Are we talking about SpaceX's rockets? The ones launching satellites? Because, you gotta understand, they're not interstellar craft. So they're not leaving the solar system. They don't need to be shielded from constant cosmic radiation. They need to be shielded from some solar radiation. But I understand that those rockets going up and launching satellites, they're not going into outer space. They're going into low Earth orbit, and they're inside the Earth's magnetosphere for the most part. And they're also within the protection of the solar sphere, which does, believe it or not, the sun gives us protection, like a shield from cosmic radiation from outer space. And then the Earth's magnetosphere protects us from the solar radiation and the cosmic radiation. So we got kind of like two layers of protection that, like, the Voyager craft that goes out into deep space, yeah, there's nobody on that because they wouldn't survive out there. But no, it's not made of lead. And that's the other thing, like, gotta understand, another reason why they scrapped the tungsten rods from God project is because just the logistics alone of getting an arsenal of tungsten rods into space. Tungsten is very heavy. It's very, very dense. And yeah, the rockets that are launching satellites are made out of all super lightweight stuff. Like, you got to understand, you get to a point where there's only so much weight you can put in a shuttle, and the vast majority of the weight required to launch it into space is the weight of the fuel required to launch it into space. And it takes so much fuel just to launch that fuel. Like, that you have to build a rocket that's like, the actual payload is a very minuscule amount of the actual entire rocket and fuel assembly system. It's just a small fraction of it. The overall weight is mostly fuel. And so, yeah, you're talking some massive, massive ships expending an insane amounts of fuel to get a bunch of tungsten rods in the space that then we drop and just hope that they hit the target just perfect and don't glance off of trajectory on re-entry. And like, there's just a lot of issues involved in making. It's one of those ideas that was really awesome in theory, but when it comes to the reality, it's a real big waste of a lot of money for very little reward. And it just comes to, we have way more effective weapons that cost way less to maintain. And oh, you couldn't have a lead shell, certainly, but I mean, just besides all that, just having lead encased anything is kind of, you're not going to be able to get enough fuel in the rocket to get a bunch of lead into space. I was thinking that it would make more sense, instead of using, okay, you need to have rocket thrusters to launch people into space and certain things but there's certain things that can be launched into space that aren't, like, it doesn't matter, it can handle way more G-forces than a human body or even a rocket ship. And if we could find a way to slingshot, I mean literally using a electromagnetic slingshot to launch things into space. Or even, like, one person was dreaming up an idea where they are launching ships this way, where they'd spin it and then fling it, and it's like a launch assist that gets the majority of the work done of getting it out of Earth's gravity. So it doesn't need near as much fuel when it does fire. But there again, you're talking some serious logistics, just trying to, make sure that it's released at the right exact angle and speed and trajectory to not end up just smashed into a mountain somewhere. You know what? Another thing I was thinking is, what if they had some kind of, like, helium balloon that could float up and then launch a pod from there to, like, get the majority of the work done, get it closer to the outer ionosphere before actually launching and firing rockets. You could get a lot more material into space to a space station a lot cheaper, I think. Yeah, mercury is liquid at room temperature, liquid metal. I want to say, doesn't gallium melt at not necessarily room temperature, but like a little over? I forget what's the melting temperature of gallium. I think it's lower than the body temperature, but I could be wrong. I remember how all our thermostats ran on a mercury switch. Maxwell, don't be fooled by frauds. There is no perpetual motion machine. Every system has to have energy. Every system that converts energy from one form to another has to have more energy in than the energy out. That's just Newton's law of thermodynamics. Anybody tells you that they've got around that, they're probably scamming, trying to get views. It's not real. Now, don't get me wrong, there is free energy in the environment all around us. There is free energy everywhere, in everything. All matter, all movement, all heat. It's all energy. Okay? So, you're not looking for an over unity machine. What you're talking about, perpetual motion machine, is like some kind of machine that powers itself and produces enough energy to keep itself moving and provide a little power past that amount. More energy than it takes to keep it spinning. Okay? That's called over unity. That's never going to happen. Because in order to do so, you would have to defy one of the most well-tested laws of physics, one of the universal constants that don't change. Yes, random. True. Tesla discovered several sources of free energy and learned how to convert them into electricity, a usable source of electricity. And he wanted to send it to the world wirelessly for free. And he was shut down by Westinghouse and General Electric and Thomas Edison and a well-funded campaign, smear campaign. Like I said, there is free energy. The device it takes to harness that energy and use it and convert it into something useful is not free. Okay? I'll give you an example. A solar powered system, or a windmill, or a hydro dam. Those are three different examples of free energy that cost about, cost an initial investment to build the device and assemble the device that it takes to harness that energy and convert it into something useful. All right, if you're working on perpetual motion, you're wasting your time. I can say that with confidence because minds that are way beyond your ability have already spent centuries working on it and failed. Okay? But if you're looking for free energy, oh, it's out there. And there's way more of it than what you know. And I mean, this solar system is nothing. Like, this is a joke compared to the amount of energy that we could be harvesting with the right devices. Yeah, I always wondered that. Tesla was the first person in the world to make a remote controlled device. So why is he not credited for it? Like, why, when you look up who invented radio waves and remote controls, it doesn't say Tesla, when in fact it was him? Like, who invented wireless energy? When you hear about directed energy weapons, you don't hear of Tesla invented that shit, but he did. When you hear about the LRAD weapon, that's straight out of Tesla's inventions. The LRAD? Yes, it is. It wouldn't have been possible without... The cell phone I'm using right now would not be possible without Tesla. But he doesn't get credit for it. The AC power that powers your home was discovered and invented by Tesla. He didn't get credit for it, but he's the one that invented AC electricity. Your friend, who is on tons of meth but a genius, has used electromagnetic energy to do what? I'm going to say with confidence that your friend is full of shit and he tricked you. And he's trying, what he's doing is trying to scam people into investing in his project so he'll have some more money to smoke his meth. In fact, I know a YouTuber that's claiming to have been working on it for decades, and he claims to be right on the brink, but he's never actually been able to show over Unity. He just has a lot of really fancy looking homemade coil motors that make some LEDs light up and confuse you as to where the power is coming from. You can feel free to build whatever device he claims he's built and do it exactly according to his plan, and I promise you, what you'll get is a big joke. You'll spend a lot of money figuring out that he's full of shit. And I would love to point you in the right direction, but I don't want to get targeted like Tesla was. But I'll give you a hint. If you want to learn how to harness some energy, um, if you want to, well, yeah, there's two different ways you could go about it, but I'd say probably the best, most useful device you could study is called a dual stage boundary layer turbine. And let me tell you what, Nikola Tesla himself was once asked, of all the things, I'm talking, this guy invented a death ray, an earthquake machine. He created ball lightning, wireless energy, directed energy weapons, acoustic weapons. Dude, this dude was beyond his time. I'm talking, he was alien in his knowledge. And he said out of his own mouth that his most important invention ever was the boundary layer turbine. But not just the boundary layer, specifically the dual stage boundary layer turbine. He said that was his most important invention ever. And I'm going to tell you what, man. They went away from steam turbines and moved to gasoline and diesel because it was just easier to develop. But we really missed a good gem there. You really ought to look into building yourself also another thing, it's called a cold steam turbine. Is another term for it because of the nature of how low of a temperature it can run on. Like, it gets an incredible amount of energy out of the system. So much so that it can be ran in a closed loop. Okay, now here's what I'm going to tell you. You can take a certain amount of surface area and build a solar panel, a photovoltaic panel that converts that direct solar radiation into electricity and then stores it in batteries that can then later be converted into a sine wave of AC electricity that can be used. Okay, now that's kind of a clunky system, and the best, most efficient solar panels, if you're lucky, might be in the most optimum conditions, getting maybe 30% max of the total amount of energy being beamed onto it by the sun. 30%. Okay? Now you take the same amount of surface area and build a solar steam boiler and use that to power a cold steam turbine and use the exhaust to cool the room that you're in, that you're powering with it, and use the same turbine to pump the water through itself that cycles the coolant, and the same turbine to generate electricity. You can literally turn solar heat. You're going to get more than 80% if you can get the turbine running at optimum speed, which is going to be around 25,000-30,000 RPMs. Then you're going to be pulling 80 to 90% of the energy out of the medium you're putting into it, rather than 30% out of the same area of solar collection. Right. What I'm trying to tell you is this could have been done a long time ago. But the problem, and I'll tell you why it never happened. The reason why none of the energy companies built such a device is because it can't be scaled up. You can power your home with it. You can cool and power your home with the steam generated off the roof. But you can't scale it up and make a commercial power plant out of it, because if you make the discs on the turbine bigger, it'll blow up. It can't operate at the speeds that it has to get the efficiency it gets. and therefore it's not, you can't use it in a commercial application to sell power. It's, but you can certainly use it to power a room. And the insane part of it is it not only creates energy, but it also cools the room as a side effect. So imagine not ever having to run an air conditioner and run a generator to power that, but instead of powering your air conditioner with a power source, your air conditioner is your power source. And you power, and the hotter it is outside, the more energy you have to feed your coolant system. Okay, now this kind of system would not work so good in the mountains, in the forests, but in the desert and in Florida and on boats, it's an excellent way to convert some solar radiation into electricity. But it even has another combined effect. When you have these layers of water being steamed over your rooftop, it protects your entire house from solar radiation. It deflects it back at the steam generator, and a massive amount of the energy that normally would heat your house by heating your roof and heating your attic and all of that is deflected back and never gets into your house. Just because of the nature of the panels themselves. Solar panels, they deflect, they catch a lot of heat, but that adds heat to the roof that they're mounted to. And these solar reflectors reflect heat back away from the roof. No, you're good, Maxwell. Thanks for your input. Thanks for dropping in. I appreciate you, man. I can relate to that guy. I'm not going to take harmful drugs to dumb myself down, but I can totally relate to the guy that would want to do that just so he doesn't feel overwhelmed with living amongst a bunch of brainwashed dumb apes. Oh man, let me tell you, I know this chica that I met recently, and she's so damn sexy, man. She's so damn sexy. But I don't know, man. Maybe not even like out of my league, really. But damn, she's such a gossip. Like right away, came into the neighborhood and started engaging in the just all the gossip with the worst gossips in the neighborhood, and like, nah. Like, man. She could have just came around and not spoke to anyone and looked good and pretty much picked up whatever dude she wanted. Like, but she came around and words started coming out of her face, and it's like the more she talks, the less attractive she is. And it's not, that's like 99% of the time that's how it goes. And that's pretty much like the main reason. Believe it or not, it's not me being totally broke all the time. That's the reason I'm usually single. It's because I can't stand being around stupid people that much all the time. And the smart ones are smart enough to get with a rich dude, not me. From the wildfires, where do you think I am, Georgie boy? Man, I'm in Florida. We got wildfires in Florida too? Here, let me take a look around. Nope. I don't smell any smoke. I don't even see any gators, man. I think that canoe with the loud motor coming through scared off any gators that would have come through this evening. They've been passing through pretty regular in the afternoons. I think more like 3 or 4. But I pretty much have this cove to gator free at night, as far as I could tell. I have not seen a bunch of gator action in this cove at night. Like, I expect a lot more. Let me see, where's my power at? Oh geez, 61%. I need to charge my phone. I need to charge a light. Alright guys, okay, I think we're done. I gotta cut off the stream. Having power issues tonight, and I want to make sure my lights run. So y'all have a good one. Thanks for joining. Those that put in some input, and those that just chilled and watched, it's all good. Hope you learned something, because it wasn't real entertaining to me. Y'all have a good one. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Until next time, I'm out of here.